Sorry, we would have had a halftime show, but that would have totally blown our zero budget. Hi everybody, it's Ray, and it's time for another installment of my 100 favorite games. This time we're counting down from numbers 50 to 41. I can't believe we're already halfway through the countdown, but that just means things just keep getting better from here on out. My number 50 is a small little game that I can tell you more than enough stories about. This is the Great Moody. Basically, this is a game that you fill at the end of your session when everybody is totally fried, or I've taken this to summer camp, and that's why it's in this lovely baggie here. Literally, there's a deck with 12 12s, 11 11s, all the way down to 1 1, and you just want to get rid of all your cards. And the way you do that is whoever's going first, and that starts with the Great Moody. I'll get to that in a second. They put down a set of cards, and each person then may play cards that are of a lower number, but they're exactly the same number of cards in the play. So the leadoff player starts with 4 12s, and anybody can play 4s of a kind, but they have to be lower than 12. There's a couple of wild card gestures in there, and the idea is between rounds, whoever is the person who went out in the last hand becomes the Great Moody, and they can order other people around to the extent that your friends will allow them to do so. So, hey, and then whoever's the last is the lesser peon, and so they really have to do all the dirty work of you collect the cards and bring me a drink and do all that. And the more that you play up into that, just the more hilarious this gets. There's definitely some strategy here. Holds a special place in my heart, and a lot of others. You might also recognize the Dilbert version. There is a Dilbert version. Stick with whichever one you want to in this slot. That's the Great Moody, my number 50. Number 49 is a Stefan Feld work called the Spyker Stocked, or Warehouse. This is an auction game where you actually have meeples that set up for each of the lots that are out there, and the idea is that so at the end, after everyone's placed their meeples, then okay, you may buy this card for the number of meeples that are sitting here. So whoever's the first one to place, they get that option. So okay, great, I'll put my meeple there first. Okay, well, I'll put a meeple here, and then you might sometimes go and put meeples up ahead so that you know that because money is kind of tight in this game, you might go and say, well, all right, I'll put a meeple up ahead because I know I'm not going to buy it for 3, and I don't think you're going to buy it for 2, so maybe I'll get a chance to buy it for 1. And there's some set collection and other things in there, but the whole mechanic of placing meeples and the more meeples that get placed on a particular card increase the bid, and even though you're the first one in, you might have a huge bill to pay if you really want that card. It's another simple design and a little box that will keep you entertained for quite a while. That's a Spyker Stock, my number 49. Number 48 is another Stefan Feld work called the Castles of Burgundy. This is a much bigger game and is definitely a point salad game. You're going to be scoring over 100 points just by sitting at the table, where you're building out a tableau of your medieval fiefdom, and you're going and you're picking up wharfs or quarries and other buildings, and those things, once you place them on your mat, you have a mat that you put these tiles on, they give you other special abilities. And the thing is, the way you select your actions, you have dice, and so those dice are actually that limit your action selections. So they will say that, okay, well, that means you can only get certain items or get certain tiles for purchase, or you can only ship certain goods based on those dice. And there's other ways that you can manipulate the dice. But there's a lot of actual just very straight, okay, well, I'm going to do these things, but the dice change it up just enough where you keep guessing and you're not always able to do exactly what you want to do. It's definitely just it's a fun time if you like scoring points. That's the Castles of Burgundy Garfield game. So we've bookended these two designers. It's Filthy Rich. And this is a Monopoly It's not even a variant, and it's not even like Monopoly. I shouldn't even go there, but it is about getting money and also potentially bankrupting your other players. That's a viable strategy in this game, is running people out of money. And so you play with a binder, and so the businesses that you own actually take up advertising spaces, and so some of the bigger ones actually take up 4 card slots, this huge sign. And the thing is, there's 4 pages, and so you 4 of these binder pages, so there's 9 per page, and then you stick these business advertising signs in there, and then you roll a number of 10-sided dice, and for each number that comes up, even if it's not your turn, you get what's called a hit, so you get so much money for that, and then those allow you, if you accrue enough money, to buy luxuries, and that's what wins you the game. You need 3 of these luxuries. And so those luxuries are dead money. They aren't worth anything. So it's money that you're throwing in a hole to get this luxury item. And so if you spend your money, you get those luxury items too quickly, you won't be able to survive long enough because there's 9 spaces on the board. Well, that 10th face on the 10-sided die is a tax and tax liability for everybody in the game. And those luxuries often have multiple tax implications. So if you have no cash and lots of luxuries, that usually means you're very close to being bankrupt. So, is it King of Tokyo with an economic theme? Not quite, but there is player elimination, and you make your own luck in this game. So if you don't like that, you might not. But this was one of really the first designer games, one of the first games that really got me started in collecting board games. So I'll talk about it for quite a while. Anyway, Filthy Rich. That's my number 47. Number 46 is you might think of it as improved Seven Wonders, but it's a different Seven Wonders. That's Among the Stars. Among the Stars, you're drafting cards and actually putting them into a tableau that build a space station. And so based on the different types, there's military and there's entertainment and commercial. There's a whole bunch of different types, and you score points based on certain abilities. And then some parts of the station require to be close to a power reactor, and so you use a power unit, power cube, but it has to be at least no more than 2 spaces away from the power reactor you want to take the cube off of, and so those were what gets you extra points. And they've added a whole ton of expansions that continue to expand the world, help you find new synergies and strategies. But the biggest thing is they also made it where it's got this slotting system, so if you want to play with an expansion, that's fine, just pull out a random set of other base game cards so that the deck that you're playing with is still the same size. And that's what a lot of these games that continue to produce expansions has a problem with. You have this infinite deck syndrome, and if you have sleeves, or even just, how do you shuffle a 400 card deck adequately? And so it makes it where, especially with the rise of apps, you only play with all the expansions if you're playing a game with an app. Anyway, more games ought to try to look into getting a slotting system like they did for Among the Stars. Fun time. Give it a try when you see it. Among the Stars, my number 46. Number 45 is a worker placement game that was a hit a couple of years ago. That's Zoeken. Zoeken is interesting in that time is actually a factor in this game because of this calendar that's really the heart of the game and takes up most of the board. The idea is that you drop these workers off, and then each turn the gears turn 1 shift, and so then your workers then get shifted into better spaces where you'll get more abilities. And then 2, you can try to pick up more workers, but a lot of other games you've got to feed those workers. And so how are you going to get that? Well, you got to send them out and try to get more corn and try to feed those workers. And then 2, based on, you can try to place workers further along the track if it's already full, but then that's going to cost you corn in order to do that. And so you're always trying to, I don't have enough corn here, I don't have enough corn there, or I decided to take fewer workers, but now I can't continue to drop folks off because you have to either drop a worker off or pick a worker up, and if you have no workers left to drop off, then you're having to pick them up even if you don't want to. Again, it's easy to play, very hard to master. That's Zoeken. My number 45. Number 44 It's a game that just kind of hit the scene last year or so. This is Lewis and Clark. Lewis and Clark is a game that it's a racing game, but it's a racing game with kind of a deck building feel. It's sort of a synthetic deck building like Rococo, where you go and you collect resources, and those resources can help you to move your expedition further up the stream, up the river. Sometimes you're climbing through mountains, and sometimes you're on the river. And the problem is the more cards that you have, if you get to choose when to recycle your deck. But if you have cards left over, and I shouldn't even say recycle, you have them in your hand. You have your whole deck in your hand, and you're playing cards. And then when you want to recycle, you count up the cards you're having remaining, and also these little Indian pawns, and that becomes a detriment that moves your scout further back. So you're having to kind of recover the same ground back and forth in order to try to bring all your junk along with you upstream. And then it's a race, and so the first player that gets to the fort at the end of the game wins. So there's no victory points, it's a race, and whoever gets to the front. So sometimes if you're playing a group, they might allow people to build up because nobody's in a hurry and not going to try to jump out there, and sometimes somebody's going to try to take the initiative, and then you're trying to balance between playing catch up and honing your party's skills so that when you're ready you can go and easily pass the person who blitzed out in front. It's a lot of fun, and it's definitely fun if you like deck building, if you like engine building, or even just a quick old race game. It's very patriotic. It's the 4th of July, starting to get to be a fun staple. Lewis and Clark, The Expedition. My number 44. Number 43 is a cooperative game, cooperative competitive game before those really started to be cool, called Terra. The idea is that you get these crises that come up over the world, and you have your own resources. You kind of represent country, group of countries, and so you have your own resources to bear. But the idea is that you have to try, if everyone works together to solve a particular crisis, right when it comes up, it's not so bad. But you don't know if there's enough resources to take care of it right when it hits the table. And then it lingers. And then the idea is that if you're the last one to play to it, then your country gets all the credit for it. So people then start to go, do I really want to help that crisis along? Because that means one of you is going to get the points. So it's a competitive game, but quite a few games of this end up where the world falls hopelessly lost and destroyed by ignoring its crises. It's a fun game. It's also one of those games to help you lose your friends. It's Terra, my number 43. 42 is one that you've seen probably pretty recently. It's last year's Kennerspiel Award winner. It's Istanbul. This is a pseudo worker placement game. It's a worker drop-off game, and the idea is that you're going from place to place and leaving assistants along the way to take actions, and eventually you're going to want to circle back around and pick those up, or otherwise you're going to suffer a pretty rough penalty. You're collecting these rubies, and that's how you win the game. It's scaled based on the number of players. It kind of gets into a thing of you deal out a map at the start of the game that can be kind of, if you aren't careful with it, can have pre-loaded spots, that basically optimal spots that kind of make it where going anywhere else is kind of silly. So you have to watch that a little bit. And they have some maps that are fine. And I know there's an expansion that's coming out pretty soon that may alleviate some of these things, but it's a pretty neat system. Give it a try if you haven't already. Istanbul, my number 42. Number 41, and the last one in this set, is a Kramer Kiesling game called Australia. Now this one's pretty fun in that you are actually leading a group of explorers trying to settle the outermost regions of Australia. And it wasn't all that long within the last 100 years that there were still unexplored, uninhabited parts of Australia. There's a lot of parts of Australia that are still not inhabited because they're desert. But this was when they were going and making a level effort to try to fully go out throughout the land. And so what you do is you have these colored cards and you have a plane. And so if you play a card, you can go land your plane in a colored area with that color. And the big thing is it was not very well translated that there's blue cards that in your plane's a little pontoon boat. That means it actually can land on the water. And so what this is, you can land in the water and then put so many of your explorers out in these little areas, and whenever a area is completely filled, all the dots in a particular area, region, then those score. And so you have to recognize when your opportunities are, because if you have the most folks there, and then if you're the one who actually puts the last guy there, you get points. And then they also have an advanced variant where you're following a little sundial for extra points around, or windmill for extra points, and windmill actually sat on the board. And then also too, you get some money that lets you just do wild things like put extra guys or change the color of your card to whatever color you want it to be, which near the end of the game you absolutely need. Again, it's a fun game. It's definitely in the Kramer and Kiesling style. That's Australia, number 41. That's another 10 down. Another 10 down, 40 to go. And again, we're just getting started with the best of the best. Thank you for watching these videos. Again, if you want to find out anything more about what I'm doing in gaming, you can follow me on Twitter at Instant Game Review. You can check us out on Facebook. Search Instant Game Review. Give us a like. Please, if you like these, subscribe. It means a lot to me and to the channel. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.